Namaste and welcome to Itihasdhir with me, Aditi Joshi, and my co-host Aditya Saraf. Itihasdhir is a platform dedicated to preserving the cultural, civilizational, and philosophical legacy of Bharat. And today we are joined by Mr. Aabhas Maldahiyar, and we're going to discuss his first book on Babur, which is Babur the Chessboard King. Uh, while Mr. Abbas is the patron who decided to take up and explore the subject of Babur, he's also written a book on Hitler. We'll be covering that also soon. So, welcome to Itihasdhir, sir. Thank you so
Namaste.
much for taking out the time and joining us.
Thank you. It's all my pleasure, and I hope that we will have some fruitful discussion.
Yes, sir, definitely. So, sir, I want to dive right in and I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to write the first book, Babur the Chessboard King, and how does it fit into the larger body of work? Now that the second book is also out, how did you decide the segmentations of the books, and what got you into picking up Babur only as a subject
Yes.
topic?
So, I'm a child who grew up in the time when the smartphones were not a distraction. So, if you look for the childhood of somebody in time of now, it's the smartphone which dominates the thing. But I come from the period when the discussions and the banter of the chacha chachis and the people around that made you what you are today. And the narratives of your mind were at times built by those gossips, talks which were around. And I was 4 year old, 4.5 year old when the instance of Babri demolition happened. That is 6th December 1992. And all we had back then was the discussion around Babri, that what happened. And I do come from a town which is religiously very charged up. It's polarized most of the time. It's Hazaribagh, a small town in Jharkhand, which is known for its Ram Navami. So, because it's Ram Navami, so obviously there were big processions, and we would come across the instances where some skirmish will happen somewhere. The moment it passes, the procession will pass through a certain region, something or other will just pick up. And so, when this has been the environment every Ram Navami in that very town or city, and imagine that the Babri demolition has happened, and somehow the Ram Janmabhoomi movement is at peak. So it's bound to happen that the discussions which are happening around are going to be around Babri. But when it's about Babri, certainly Babur will come into the picture. So somehow the ghost of Babur carried ahead with me. It was always there, very much with me. And so we still see that the this Timurids, whom we hopelessly keep calling Mughals for a very long time. Everyone calls them Mughals still, but they're actually Timurids, and they still walk to our drawing rooms, the living rooms, whether it's through the panels sitting in Republic TV, or whether it's Times Now or it's India Today. Everywhere it's the Timurids slash Mughals making the way to your drawing room. And so it so happened on a very fortunate day around 5.5 or 6 years back when Tejasvi Surya made some comment on India Today that Akbar was brutal and something of that sort. And all the stalwarts just came into the picture trying to sing apologia for the Timurids, starting from Akbar and whatnot. So our great lyricist Javed Akhtar also jumped into the picture, and then suddenly everyone was historian. And so it happened that we were made to hear that our economy was the best in the era of when the Timurids ruled Bharat or Hindustan. And so there was a there was a historical debate which happened between Tariq Fateh and Javed Akhtar. So I followed that debate, and somehow the numbers which were again put by Javed Akhtar was certainly very off the mark. They were wrong for sure, uh, both motivationally and both in terms of fact. And I thought that maybe it is a time to go back to the source which people have been quoting, say Angus medicine. And when I opened the chapter of Angus medicine, the facts which began to come, they were even more startling because, yes, our GDP per capita, GDP share of the world was around 25%, which is 24.8% to be precise, in the era when the Timurids barged into Hindustan. But I got to know from the same statistic that in 1000 CE it was 28%, and in 1 CE it was 32.8%. So, which means that India's GDP share was way larger before the dominant Muslim rule, if I put it very precisely, because Delhi Sultanate was there, and then later
Mm.
on came the Timurids. So that's where the journey began, and went on to give lectures around. People were calling me to talk about the economy, etc. In that era, and that's when it was Mr. Mohandas Pai who said that Abbas, enough done for the lectures. Why don't you make a PowerPoint presentation? And PowerPoint presentation happened, and when it happened and I conveyed the news to him, he said that, oh, now it would be a rightful time to start looking to do the books on the Timurids, be the writer or the biographer of whom you see as antagonist. So it would be a great thing to start with, and that's where the memory of the childhood that I always wanted to uncover, that who this man Babur is. And of course, my childhood was very much dominated by that monochromatic, beautiful cinematic thing put in Mughal Azam, where Prithviraj Kapoor plays the role of Akbar. But fact be that Akbar was way far away from how Prithviraj would look like. And then we were showed the image of the Salim, the lover boy, the Jahangir, through Dilip Kumar playing the role. But again, the facts which began to come, they were so startling. So, of course, you have to begin with the founder, and that had to be Babur for sure. And so that's how it happened. And I'm already uh, a good long way through in Akbar. I have already begun to write around it. So the next work will cover Akbar, a part of Humayun as well. And so that's how the journey is going to be. It's not going to stop at Babur. It just so happened that because he's the cornerstone, or you can say that
Mm.
he's the founder, so it just happened to be that this had to be the book.
Right. So, sir, I mean, we get to know through many of your, talks, that there was a sort of a transition away from Marxism that uh, you saw as an individual, and how has that sort of shaped your approach in reconstructing the history, specifically Babur's? And I mean, you did talk about Akbar and the sort of paean singing around Akbar that exists today, that he was Jalaluddin Akbar, the great king. I mean, with respect to Babur, what gaps or misconceptions exist around him that prompted you to challenge the mainstream narrative and write uh, your book Babur, the Chessboard King?
So, of course, mm, like you pointed out that, of course, our things have been influenced by Marxism, and in fact, I was also influenced by Marxism. And so it happens because, see, there's a very unique case for India. It's very tough to place India or Bharat in the perspective of this Western jargons of socialism, communism, etc. It's very tough to see that where we can stand or where we stand, what we are doing, because every kid in us or every one of us in our childhood is some kind of a socialist, where you feel by the pain of the others. You feel that something is wrong on that street next to you when you see somebody asking for alms or is begging. You feel sad about it. You just feel that you will want to uh, vanquish all his problems in one go. And so it so happens that when you have very set theories brought in front of your eyes, there's set ways that how the things are going to work in an economical setup. And when I say this, I mean to say about the Marxism. We had that broad framework in forms of the books, the literature, which had been dominating softly even through the films, the feature films which we saw in the past. where it's always has to be that a rich man is a villain and the one who is poor is always the hero. And so we grew up in these times and through the Doordarshan late night 9:30 p.m. movie, which people will wait for. And at the same time, it's unfortunate that all the Hindu household are not too committed to propagate the Hindu ideas into the mind of the young buds. And perhaps this is the beauty of the sect too, that it's not totalitarian. It is not giving you a total solution for everything in the life, but at the same time, it does not impose itself upon you. But this whole idea of the open architecture is very dangerous at times because what it does is that it lets other ideas percolate in your mind. And when those ideas mix up with the belief that perhaps there's something wrong in the religion, because you were told that there was a humongous sati pratha in the tradition, which you are told in that era of 6th, 7th standard, the books are telling you aloud that there was sati pratha, there was a very bad jatiwad and whatnot. And then you feel that yes, something was wrong with my tradition. And then when all these ideas of Marxism, postmodernism begin to come up to you, you tend to become an amateur Marxist or a communist. If you are dedicated with a cause that you have to do something for the country, because what you can do for the country is by making the people get a better lifestyle. That's what you begin to think. And it happened with me too. I began a war to our own tradition. It seemed that it's full of superstition. It is full of regressive people. It's patriarchal, a very famous word nowadays. But back then only, I had got the feel that it's patriarchal and there is nothing for the woman, nothing for the downtrodden, and it's always society dominated by a certain bunch of upper caste men who are going to just ruin the economy and make it richer and poor becomes poorer. And so there comes the vibe of the revolutionary within you, and you want to become that revolutionary. And then that quest to become that revolutionary often tends you to get into this idea of Marxism. And I was fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know what it was, but I became an architect. I went to the architecture school. And when you go to the architecture school, it is the place where you study about the art movement, you study about the postmodernism, you study modernism, and if you are into literature, somehow those ideas will take you to the communism because you will start to read about the root of the postmodernism, and then you become even more committed communist by the theory. Of course, you are not in the party, etc., but ideologically you are have become a brainwashed, foolish Hindu boy who is ready to become a professional and someday again to nonsense social media posts, which we have many out there today too, who will. And but what it does is that it takes you away from the tradition, which is very essential for the long lasting of the civilization. And if the Hindu civilization is wiped away, we are going to face a lot of problems. And because we were talking in the context of the history and the historiography around the Mughals, that's what you asked me. And whatever you have seen so far, whether Akbar being shown in a great light, being the great, or whether it's about Jahangir being portrayed as the great lover boy in terms of the Salim of Dilip Kumar, what you saw in Mughal Azam, or whether it's the you when you go for a vacation to Delhi, when it's become a ritual to take a picture in front of the Taj Mahal because it is this epitome of symbol of the love. When these traditions are enforced upon you, it means that you are being made to believe that those who were actually the atrocity maker upon our ancestors were not the one who did it, but they were actually the great people. And that's where the fall of the civilization begin to happen. Until unless you have that sense of realizing that who those villains are and who your heroes are at the same time. Because there is no existence of heroes without the villains, and there is no existence of villains without the heroes. and both are going to exist perpetually. And so when I was looking into the text of Babur, initially, as in the work which were done by the historians, so they made to appear Babur as if he was the most cultured man. And in fact, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru said that Babur would be the
mm,
most civilized man you can ever come across. He's the most cultured man and whatnot, right? But he's the same Pandit Nehru who promoted the idea of the Ashoka. And the first, the when you say that promoted the idea of Ashoka, that means the Buddhist ideas. And when you start talking about the Buddhist ideas, unfortunately, Babur was the first person who attempted to destroy the Bamiyan Buddhas. Finally, the work was finished by the Taliban. So
mm,
this was the full of the ironies through which we were being fed. And of course, we did not had a lot of literature around Babur. We had a bit of work around Akbar, more in the attempt to appreciate him, but there was hardly anything
mm,
about Babur. Only we had some belief that yes, Babur was a great man because Pandit Nehru said it, and because there was a series called Akbar the Great on Doordarshan back then. So where
mm,
you were made to feel that the empire which was established was somehow great, and there was a movement in India which was also a vote to Ram Janmabhoomi movement, which is about the notion that whatever the Hindutva do, that's something very bad, and that's the reason why a large bunch of the professionals were ultra secular, say in the age of era of 90s and early 2000. It's only in the recent 2 decades or so when people have begun to realize that something was not right, what was
mm,
being taught to us, or the way we have been living our lives. So that's where the journey of uh, these antagonists had to begin. And when I looked into the text, like I found that Babur was a gay, which was quite a surprising thing to me because then the question was that why the Muslim world try to celebrate this man because they want to throw other gay from the terrace. So why Babur is made to be a hero? And then when I came to know about the his whole uh, aspiration to make the skull towers, and
mm,
he would and this man is such a great poet too. And what he does is that in the morning he will kill the people, he will make the tower of the heads, and the evening beautifully through the poem he will express that how he had made the skull towers and whatnot. So he was looking the opportunity of poetry even in this the murders what he was doing. So I would say that he was a great poet at heart, but equally a very brutal man. Certainly not a hero which the land of Hindustan will look to like to even look for.
in fact, I mean, you talk about, well, it is called haram. You've explained it beautifully in your second book, the haram and the kufra part of it all. We'll come to it when we discuss your second book. But I mean, so much of wine drinking, sodomy, all of that. I mean, here is a person who is defined as, well, the great Ghazi who came to India, the third great jihadi invader of India. And then on the other hand, we have all of these very distinctly non-Islamic qualities that he exudes.
Yes, he did everything which is kufr, if you put it this way. But I had posed this question when this Babur one had come to a lot of people, when a lot of people got very agitated up against arms, even against the print when they published the piece about he about his boyfriend or whatever, the Babri, and it became a matter of disgust for a lot of people. The people who appreciate print for what they want to appreciate for suddenly began abusing them. And then my question was that what's the problem with you, the folks? Because uh, then the question goes to the Islamists that Babur was a gay, which is you cannot appreciate him for sure. He was alcoholic. Again, you can't appreciate him for. He was a great poet for sure, but again, you don't appreciate Mirza Ghalib that much. So there is no point why you will talk about Babur being great. Then the fourth point that he did one fantastic job. When he did a fantastic job, it is to destroy the idols, and he plays that I am going to destroy the Hindu
Mm,
gods and goddesses, same way as I have destroyed the pots of wine. So he compared our gods and goddesses with the pots of wine, and he's compared himself with Ghazni and Gori, the two
Mm,
ultimate Butchikan. So is this the fourth criteria, which is
right.
making him the hero among all? Then it becomes a serious problem. It becomes a serious problem. It means that anybody is good for you if he decides to destroy Hindu heritage, he decides to kill the Hindus or the Kafirs, then he's a fantastic guy. It doesn't matter whether he's doing thousands of good. So yeah.
I feel so that also comes from what happens. Like, I mean, we all know what is happening at the top orders. Even though like speaking about it lands you in trouble. But that's the thing. No, it's the messaging that they give. The messaging is very anti-Sanatan or anti-idolatry, as they say. So anyone who's doing that, like you are golden. Baki, like whatever you're doing, you do it behind closed curtains, or like we'll just ignore it as long as this part is, followed through. So Abbas sir, I want to ask you something that as a historian, so you're not someone who is from the history background, but you took up this mammoth task. So and you're advocating for this Indic perspective and coming also from slightly like you said that there was a time that you've been in this left-leaning sort of a scenario and a like headspace. So what challenges did you face while you were researching in presenting this narrative, and how did you make sure that your identity as a historian is not questioned in the process?
So it's very interesting that see, I will always be questioned that if I claim that I'm a historian, because there's a word which had popped up when Savarkar too had come up, had released. There's a term which we came to know. I heard for the first time. This is called professional historian, and people were up in arms against Vikram Sampath back then, that he's not a historian, he's not a professional historian, and whatnot. Many such things did happen. Now, I am sure that I am never going to be qualified as a historian in front of their eyes for sure, because I have not gone to any fancy or unfancy university whatsoever to get a degree in history for sure. But what I have done is that they have not done. Is I very essentially believe that history needs to be studied scientifically. Now, all these Marxist school historians have been saying that history needs there has to be scientific temperament. You have to read it scientifically. It means that they push for a methodology. At the same time, they say that you have to be very rational about what you are saying. But as much as they say and cry so loud, they do the least of it. Because if you pick up their thesis, which many of our thesis which you can get online, and you will find that they are doing a lot of secondary source citation. And if you are a student of history, and in the era when the manuscripts can be accessed at so much ease, and whatsoever when you are dealing with the medieval era, we have all the manuscripts in the National Archives. We have the manuscript in the National Museum at Delhi. And so when you have those manuscripts in front of you, but still, if you are quoting the secondary sources, and so what has happened that I'll just give you one example about it. There was a book which was written by Professor Romila Thapar around Somnath. It became a very famous book, and she propels a story that when
Humanist.
yeah, so yes, it was seen as a because there was a memory among the people that the Almanach's idol had been carried to Gujarat and had been installed there, and Muhammad just missed to destroy it. And that's the reason why Rory gets into the business, and he wants to destroy it. He has no intention whatsoever to do anything against the Hindus. And whom she quotes 1920s historian Nizami. Okay, in the footnotes you will see Nizami. Whom Nizami quotes? Nizami quotes another historian, contemporary historian, Now, when you look for the work of Nizami, you will find that Nizami is not making a claim. He is saying that there is one opinion which exists that way, but he is not making a claim that Gori did exactly this way. The moment you will read Romila Thapar, you will believe that Gori thought it, that this is the way. But even Nizami disagreeing to, rather, Nizami is not making even such claim. And when you further go to the primary source which Nizami is quoting, you will find that that primary source does not talk at all about this instance of Almanat. It's absent anywhere in all those Parsi manuscripts. But this went on to be happened on Lalan Top. This went on to be happened on India Today, everywhere. And look at our damn journalists. Like they didn't even think twice to question that what are the sources. You make a claim that you have read the Farsi manuscript. What is the folio number? Where did you find it? Because this is a big claim. But this became a talk of a thing. Now, this is what they have been doing for very long, and there is no sense of triangulation too. And triangulation basically means that you have, when you have got three sources, you superimpose them and you see that what area is the maximum covered, that what you conclude that this can be the point of view. Because we as a people who deal with history don't know that what exactly happened in the past. We don't know. Maybe that what I have written may be all wrong too, but a historian has nothing but the most primary or the most contemporary source which he can use, and whichever is the closest. So I thought that this needs to be broken, because when I was looking for the translation of Babarnama, even in the translations, I could see the differences because the Hindu becomes pagan immediately in the translations. Like Babar is using the term Hindu very categorically,
Mm.
but yes, and it becomes pagan. Babar uses the term kafir, it becomes again the pagan. Kafir is again translated to pagan. I don't know how it can ever happen. So this changes the meaning altogether. And there's a whole fiasco which has happened even around Ram Mandir. And trust me, even the friends on our right wing side have missed it. They also got carried away by the translation, forgetting the fact that all these translators were just doing the justice to their reporting job. They whatever they were just trying to please the reporting managers. It was as simple as that. So when Anis Beveridge Sujan translated Babarnama, she was trying to please her immediate bosses, who were the evangelists. And for the evangelist, Hindus and Muslims equally were the enemies. And so that's the reason why when she translated the Babarnama, she inserted a lot of annotations and extra things into Babarnama just because it was important to show the founder of an empire, which was just an immediate empire before the British, as a very villainous one, just to prove that you are even more ridiculous. So we at the right also, because we did not know the language, we got carried away by the translations, and in this transition, a lot of truth got lost. And in fact, when we will talk about Babur too, we'll talk about Ram Mandir, that how this whole thing was taken for a ride because we did not know the language. We were made the fool, and we just agreed to be made fool, and it just happened. So for me, it was important to pick the language. I picked the Farsi of that era. I can read it. I cannot speak it fluently, but I can read the script. I can say that what it has been written, and I picked the original manuscript, and that's where the journey began. And the rest is all in front of you. It's around 1,000 pages work when you bring them all together, and it's entirely based on exact original Babarnama.
Mm.
I have not felt any opinion, and perhaps that's was the challenge too, as you were asking about it, Aditi, that what was the challenge? Challenge was that how do I filter? Because I had to come on terms with a lot of things because a lot of myth has been peddled even by the right wing, and I do believe in them. How do I break it? How do I move ahead with it? But uh, the history owes to none, not to just owes to the people of that era and that time. So I just did that. It may, uh, you know, make right wing angry. It may make left wing angry, but it doesn't matter because history needs to remain as it is. It has to be for history wing.
I think when it comes to studying Farsi, you'll be the first one who's actually made that effort. Otherwise, we do have a historian who's covered majority of the Islamic empire in India, but does not know a single word.
Yes, and that's why it becomes very interesting and problematic. And So Jatunnath Sarkar had said in 1950s when he was retiring to his pupils and to their pupils that it's a golden time for Indian historiography because now you can access the original manuscripts in the language of the authority. So he said it, but it never happened. Of course, the people like R.C. Majumdar followed the trade, and there were a few more, but they were always categorized as somebody who aligns with the right, and they were never seen as a very serious historians. But they were the most serious historians because they went back to the language. And all the Marxist history happened without knowing a single language. They don't know Persian. They don't know. I would focus more on Persian, Farsi because for the medieval history they are the one who have done the job, but they just said the worst butchery what could have been done with history.
Before I take up the next question, I have to appreciate two things in the book. One is, of course, that it sticks so well to the Babur Nama that at places it might get hard for the reader to follow, or it might get boring for people who are not exactly into history, but it sticks to it so well that you get the hint that you are reading history as it was meant to be read without any sort of bias. And so that is a very big achievement in itself, because while writing a book, the first thing that any author decides is what the conclusion is going to be. And I think Mr. Arun Shori points this out so well. I mean, the conclusion is decided before all the facts are even studied. So that was one. And the second was the use of the transliterations, because ultimately, I mean, as readers of history, without those transliterations, it is so difficult to know how those words would have been pronounced in that language. And so with that, it becomes so much easier. My question, sir, relates to something you had said in response to the first question. You had brought up the terminology of the dynasty, whether it is Timurid or Mughal. I mean, first of all, I would like you to tackle the self-perception that Babur had for himself and his progeny, uh, because you tackle it very well in your first book, telling us what he thought about the word Mughals, or rather Timurids. And the second is that, of course, there's a whole Mughal Timurid Gurkhanian debate. Do you think that the British and the later historians' use of the word Mughal, it distorts that self-image that Babur had of himself as a jihadi or a ghazi and an empire builder of sorts? And how does your reading of the Babur Nama sort of inform this stance?
Well, so when I had announced on X around 5 years back that I'm going to do the books on these emperors, I said that I'm going to do on Mughals. So even I was not aware that I will end up uh, debunking my own belief, and so it was tough to grapple in the initial times because we all keep saying Mughals, 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 and it's just very tough to erase it away. But when I began to read Babur Nama, what I was very curious to understand is what was the name of empire which he had established. But there is no hint of any name for the establishment of empire. We don't find any name per se. What we find is that he calls the empire of Timur as Timurid Gurkhania Empire, and he is just doing the Timurid Gurkhania Empire 2.0 to get a hint about it. Though he has categorically never mentioned which empire he is establishing, but he gives a very strong hint that he is just doing an extension of empire of Timur Lane, the Timur. It was very clear. Now, uh, the Mughals are the term used for the the Mongols. It's a Persianized term for Mongol. And Mongols are the people who have butchered and massacred the Muslims the most. They were the biggest of the enemies. And the Babur's mother side comes from the Genghis Khan's side, and Yunus Khan is grandfather from the mother side, and from the father side is through the Taimur. Now Taimur and Genghis both fall uh, through the same ancestor, who is Tumanay Khan. Now Tumanay Khan is the topmost ancestor, and in the fifth generation appears Genghis, and the tenth generation appears Taimur. Now Changiz family or the Changiz lineage is bit too ultra secular. It means that they kill everybody. They don't ask your religion. They just kill the enemy. They were very secular killers. In the contrast, Taimur was very religiously fanatic, and in fact, he spells out in his own words, which has been translated or rather put into the words by Yazdi, who is his biographer, the contemporary person. He says that Taimur wants to fulfill the wish of the Prophet Muhammad, which is to Islamize the whole world. Now, this is the notion of Taimur, and in fact, in all the battles which Taimur went, he against the polytheists or say the Kafirs or the people who are not Muslim, he took the prescriptions from the holy book that what exactly he's supposed to do with them. Now, the Mongols or the Mughals rather are very secular people, and they their image was so great and so different back then that even Europeans went on to be getting awe to them. Like Gibbon is a the historian who did a great work on the Roman history. He says that in fact Genghis Khan can be compared with Dr. Locke. Dr. Locke is guru of Voltaire, whom everybody swears upon and says all the liberals like to quote Voltaire a lot. So now imagine the guru of Voltaire is being compared with Genghis Khan. Why? Because of the reason of the libertarian ideas, the liberal ideas. Liberal ideas are this. Now the liberal ideas of Genghis are this that no one is going to stop anybody from doing anything whatsoever. And only for Islam, there was a prohibition that there will be no halal slaughter, and mm, you will not follow the Sharia law. This was the restrictions among the Muslims. Rest all remains same. And in fact, the Changiz and his later successors went on to destroy the Islamic world completely. And Islam was completely in ruins, and there's a whole chapter of the destruction of Baghdad. Baghdad has fallen. And Higlu Khan, who is again the grandson of Changiz, is in a rampage, is just destroying and destroying, and nothing is. And that's when he gets into a battle with Barke Khan, who is again the cousin of the Helgu Khan, and he's a new convert. He had just got converted into Islam, and he comes and sees that the Baghdad is getting destroyed and has been destroyed. Rather, the Caliph has been killed. So he passes this message to Jochi, his father, who happens to be uncle of Helgu Khan, that please stop this, and we cannot. Islam is a great religion. This must not happen. And so Joshi said that this cannot happen because the Mongols don't cross the sword against each other for the religion. But then that's when Haglu and the Barke go in a battle, and in that battle, unfortunately, Haglu Khan gets defeated. And that's where the Islam gets the massive expansion. Had he won the battle, the history, geopolitics, everything would have been much more different. But that is how it transpired. So that's the legacy of the Mongols per se. But in the contrast, Timurids have been very religiously fanatic. They see themselves as more Persian. That's why you see in the courts of Akbar and all, it was not the Mongol language or it was not Turkic language, but it was the Persian which became a predominant language. And Babur always saw Mongols as the troublemakers, the people who make the trouble. So when you see in the read in the Babur Nama, you will always find that Babur is abusing Mongols for many times. There is a rebellion which has happened to the Mongols, and also there's a whole thing. Patches is written by Humayun as well. If you will read the works of Humayun Nama, Humayun is again very abhorrent to the Mongols. So they see that Mongols are the people wherever they go, they create the disturbances. And here we went on to establish a case that they established a Mughal empire, which they hated. The Babur had extreme hate for the Mughals and the Mongols. And of course, this distortion happened because for the Europeans, race was very important. And when they saw the Timurids, they saw them as the successors of the Mongols or the Mughals because they were the Mughals by the blood and or by the genetics. So they categorized all of them as Mughals, and we, being the bootlickers of the English, we followed to follow the same concept, and we kept on calling them Mughals for ages, but they themselves never told them. And there might be a deliberate cause too, because the Mughals or Mongols were always seen as some very culturally more civilized. Forget what Babur is saying, but they built some great empire. The Mongol Empire was a great one, and they were very, very liberal. So Babur never saw himself as the progeny of Mongols or the Mughals. He always saw himself as a Timurid. So, and this distortion was further carried forward by us, and Mughals were seen as the liberal people, the libertarian, where every religion flourishes. And so this was more of an attempt to secularize, and that's when perhaps the term Mughal became very predominant. And because when you talk of Taimur is always about the bloodbath in Delhi, where the streets were really smelling out of blood for the days and days. It was a great massacre where a lakh of people died, and a lot happened in the Taimur's visit to Delhi. So the moment you associate Babur with Taimur, a different story begins to pop up in your mind because then you know that who exactly Taimur was. Yes. So
So you have very vividly captured Babur's early struggles. So this moniker, the Chessboard King, portrays his adept navigation through, political intricacies and adversities. So my question is that the title of Chessboard King, it gives you a sense that there was a strategy, there was unpredictability, and like precarious survival skills at hand. So, which episodes, which may include betrayals and power jockeying with the king, or the loss of Samarkand, best embody this metaphor in Babur's career?
so mm, see, Babur had got this title of being a chessboard king from Farishta. Farishta is again a Muslim scholar, and he called him Shatranj ka Badshah, or Badshah Shatranj. This is the term he uses, and that so happens because mm, Babur was a very mobile king, if you look at it that way. And the people who play chess will know that what power a king holds. The only power the king holds is that if king is checkmated, the game is over. But still, what king can do, the maximum is that can just go one house ahead, one house left, right, 45-degree left, right, and that's all what it can do. So in that case, Babur's life was exactly revolving around those aspects. He would march toward the Samarkand. Samarkand is won, and by the time he has been in Samarkand, he will get a news that Andijan is under threat. He will go to the Andijan. He gets to know that there's something else is happening in Samarkand. So his back and forth keeps happening between Andijan, Samarkand, Hizar, and he keeps traveling all his life. He's never stationary. But still, the empire or the reign of the Mirzas, as they were, the Mirzas is what they were called, the family name. They continued to reign. It's just that they were not at Samarkand, they were not at Andijan. Later on, it was finally established at Kabul, and that's the reason why Babur always saw Kabul as such an important place. That's the reason why he wanted himself to be buried in Kabul, because that's where his rise began. And it so happens in our lives too, whether it's a corporate life or wherever, where you see your rise, you always remember that place, or you always wish to go back to that place again and again. So many people also build a case that because Babur hated Hindustan, of course he hated Hindustan, that's a different thing. But that was not the reason why he chose to be buried in Kabul. It was a Kabul which gave him rise. That's the reason why he chose to be buried in Kabul. It's that way around. But yes, his life was always between traversing between Samarkand, Andijan, and other places. And somehow he could never reinforce himself at any place. And there are many such episodes of which one of the most famous one was about when he won Samarkand briefly for a short period of time, and that's when he gets the news that Andijan is in trouble, and he went to Andijan, and by the time he's on the way to Andijan, he gets to know that Andijan cannot be saved. So that's when he starts living in the camps and the tents, and finally he chooses to move to Kabul.
So, so, like his exile, his failed reclamations, and the constant shifting alliances, did his methods of statecraft and personal survival, did they differ once he was in India and he was managing affairs?
Oh yes, because see, one thing which was very fantastic about Babur is that he went into the business right from the age of 11. And if and I have looked at character of Babur very dispassionately. That's what I like to do now. That because once if I would have let the passion flow in, perhaps I won't have been able to see these angles of Babur. My attempt only would have been to finish the conclusion, but I was less worried about the conclusion. I was more worried that how I portray each and every aspect of Babur so that remains a biography, it does not become a pamphlet. So that's so Babur, when he loses his father at the age of 11 or 12, and so every cousin, every uncle of him is around there. Everyone is trying to annex the land, annex the throne, and many of them don't want Babur to grow or become the Pacha or the king. And he's looking at circumstances, he's facing it, he knows nothing. What you can expect an 11-year-old boy to do? He's just down with the grief of the loss of his father, and he has to, and he has written some very beautiful poems about the loss of his father too. So when you look at it from an emotional point of view, the boy was in deep trouble. He was looking to just get some peace, looking at the death of his father. That's what he was trying to do. And that's when exactly he also needs to safeguard the throne. He is being taught a lot by Khwaja Kalan, and there are many other people later on, Khusro Shah, who will become a traitor too. But there are many people who accompany him all the way along as he's growing. So most of the acts which he did in the initial part of the life till he reaches to the Kabul were all guided by some or the other mentors. They were always there with him. And so that's the reason why many of his campaigns failed. He did make 5 attempts to enter into Hindustan, and the fifth one he finally gets successful because none of those attempts were full-hearted and with the aim to establish the Timurid Empire, but they were very half-hearted attempts coming from the external people. Because see, here of a Timur feeling for the empire will be different than somebody else just pushing you. Let's do it. There's a difference because he was always guided by somebody else. So it really troubled a lot. One great thing happened with Babur was that he got a very good enemy, and the relationship between him and that enemy is that of a Tom and Jerry, that is Shaibani Khan. So it's just the case that where the Babur would go, Shaibani would follow. Babur will again run from there. Shaibani will come again, and the it goes on and on. So having to encounter Shaibani Khan for so many times, he learned a lot of skill to how to fight the small battles because these were small battles. These were not really full-fledged battles. So as he's entering into the Hindustan, he's coming across a lot of small tribes. Like in Afghanistan, he comes across many tribes whom he interacts with, whom he tries to pacify. When they don't hear, he slaughters them. But Babur keeps on maturing. His from an 11-year-old boy in 1494 to 1495 rather, when he loses his father, till he reaches to Kabul in 1504 or so. So it's 10 plus more years, so it's 20 plus. So his ideas to look at the conquering has changed drastically. Now, when they were entering into Hindustan, it was a very different terrain because there was a lot of snow, and you would have noticed that there are a lot of horses which are dying. They have to preserve the horses. They, in fact, there comes a situation when they don't have anything to eat. They decide to eat the horse itself, and they are lacking the horses now to even go ahead. So they have to close the campaign and come back. So again, this will look like a very archaic part of Game of Thrones, the way it goes, the way it's going. But this was very realistic. He has to face the snowfields where the snowfields are around 4 feet deep. You will just get inside the snow. So that's how he is coming into the Bharat. Now, these don't require a lot of strategies per se. These are something where it's more of a life skill in such adverse situations. So he's taking a local guide, help of the local guide, how to go ahead. He's trying to figure out the ways because there is no strategy per se. There is no tactic. He just is coming across the thing in the life or the situation. He's just fighting it out to the local guide. But the moment he enters into the Kabul, he's a very mature Babur. He's a very different boy. He's a different man. He is very well aware about the politics, how the politics needs to be done because he's running the statecraft. He has been able to win over all the Timurid princes, been declared the Pasha by all the Timurid princes, who were all the adversaries have become his own now. They are supporting him. And then he finally decides that I need to make a campaign into the Hindustan. And he prepares a very good strategy of diplomacy, etc., through the letters, through a lot of diplomatic exchanges with and in Ibrahim Lodi's own people was having a letter exchange with Babur, trying to bring him. So he has got a very good strategy. And in fact, when he goes to the Battle of Panipat, for the first time, again, this may not qualify as a strategy, but this is what it did. He used the human shield for the first time. And when you will read in the Baba 2, you will get to know that there's a use of a human shield. He has used the villagers as a human shield. Now, today you hear the stories of human shield being used, but it was used by Babur back then. And so this was part of his strategy. Then gunfire has become a part of his cavalries and they are being used. And that's is something which has made a big difference in Hindustan against the whether it was against the army of Maharana Sangram Singh, who was popularly known as Rana Sanga. In fact, the Battle of Panipat too, his artilleries and his gunfire, etc., made a lot of difference. And had not been there, perhaps Babur wouldn't have been able to conquer Delhi.
So essentially, I mean, you talk about this. Babur has a sort of a bitter relationship with Hindustan, if I may, because he has a scathing critique of Hindustan. He says there's no beauty in its people, no graceful social intercourse, no poetic talent, understanding, no good horses, meat, grapes, melons, other fruit. And yet, somehow, Babur is the person that, we choose to idolize. A lot of Indians sort of look up to him. Um, but then, if he had so much of hatred for India, why was he ultimately in India? Was this a last resort of a sort, or was this a calculated embrace of a new imperial vision that he had to, build this sort of a Timurid 2.0 empire? Why was he in India?
So he surely wanted to fulfill the unfinished agenda of Taimur. That was for sure. And at the same time, he had no choice because he can't go back to Samarkand. Samarkand is very hostile, and in fact, he finally makes to make a big move towards Hindustan when he gets a news that Shaibani Khan is again approaching in Kabul. So that's when the first massive attempt happens to enter into Hindustan. And he had heard the stories about the riches, and like his own ancestor Shah Rukh, who had sent his Ambassador Abdul Razak to Hindustan, and when he came to Vijayanagar, he said, reported back saying that the gems and the stones are sold as if they're selling vegetables on the street, and the palace of the king is way larger than our biggest bazaar in Samarkand. So these are the feedback what he gets back, and this is what he has recorded in Babur Nama too. So he knew that how much wealth Hindustan amasses. And in fact, he goes on to explain that in Hindustan there is cheap labor, as in you can get anybody to do anything because people are also very docile. And to build an empire, you need docile people who can work for you, who can work in the direction you want them to work. You want to build fortresses, you want to build palaces, you want to build the cantonments, etc., etc. Many other things which need to be built, and you need the support of such people. He also talks about a lot of gold, and in fact, when the Battle of Panipat happened, after that, it took away all the wealth. It was transported back to Samarkand. It was transported to Kabul. It is said that in Kabul, each and everyone got at least one silver coin, one Shahrukhi. So imagine back that in that era, each Kabuli, as in the citizen of Kabul or the person living in Kabul, got a minimum of one silver coin. How much it would mean. So the saying that the Mughals to yahi ke ban ke reh gaye and they never took the wealth. Wealth drained was a continuous process, and Babur took a lot of them after Battle of Panipat. He ensured that all that it is taken there. And just to bring in a contrasting side to it, because recently again Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj name was being tarnished in this whole debate of the NCRT fiasco, whatever happened. So the when Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj came to Karnataka, and people went on to record to say that he looted Karnataka, he destroyed the lives of the people, Hindus here in Karnataka. But what Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj did is that whatever the wealth which was taken, it was distributed among the people. That is what he did. It was never taken to his own treasury. It never worked like that. And he also removed the slavery from Karnataka. And he goes on to say that to a Dutch that when the Muslims ruled, you could do the slavery, but because I am the master here, now you cannot do the slavery. So he abolished slavery from Karnataka. So that is a contrast between the idealistic Hindu Raja and what a militia ruler would do. He would he took a lot of slaves, as in Babur. He carried a lot of wealth, and at the same time, he actually abhorred Hindustan because he could not get the fruits he wanted to eat. He was very fond of eating melons. He was very fond of good fruits, which he was not getting. And it's so fortunate or unfortunate that he just happened to visit certain parts of Hindustan, the Rajasthan, the Gujarat. So there was a maybe that if you would have spent a lot of time, you would have had good thing to say about Hindustan in terms of fruits at least. But he perhaps did not. And yes, in fact, he had it was a very natural thing to have hatred for Hindus too. And so a lot of polemics does come because he has to right wrong things. Maybe that was also the reason.
Of course, when you talk about wealth, we do see, I mean, again in your second book, that he's so sure of himself once he is, occupied Delhi. Vikramaditya is presenting him with Kohinoor and he just treats it like any other stone. So, I mean, that also does come in. But then the thing is that there's so much disdain for Indian life and, I mean, of course, for Hindu customs, and somehow he reconciles that very well with his this Islamic outlook that I came here to be a martyr and I was made a ghazi. This whole outlook that my God is helping me in conquering these infidels. How do you reconcile this, this individual wrestling with exile and triumph while also seeing it as a whole, medieval Islamic outlook that God has created me, sent me here perhaps as a ghazi to convert these infidels to Islam.
Yes. So see, this is a very common tenet which runs through all the Islamic invaders, that whatsoever it may take, Kohinoor is important for sure, but it's not as much important as it is to conquer the people of Hindustan because they are Hindus. So that's the reason why when he's shown a Kohinoor, he does not is not very interested to look at it. And of
If
course,
I may
people,
interrupt you,
yes,
I mean, this sort of again brings us back to that thing that Babur, likens himself to the Ghaznavids and the Ghurids, because again, I mean, with the whole Somnath episode, that is exactly what happens. I mean, the priests give him so much money, and Ghazni says that that would make me a trader of dolls, and I would much rather be known by the more honorable epithet of a breaker of dolls.
that's so true. And that actually defines exactly what the Islamic invaders wanted. That whatsoever it may happen, because the wealth is a very materialistic thing, and the gain of your wealth is not going to give you the shabab for the Jannah, as in Jannah. It all needs to do the you have to do the act the Ghazi if you want to be that the best one. And it comes from theology, so people can choose to debate around it. That the very verses were written in this context and that context, but here are some practical things which are coming out, whether it's khilji. And there was an interesting episode of discussion about jizya between khilji and a Islamic imam, and that further tells you that what the mindset was, that whether you have to take more wealth or you have to humiliate them more, etc. So it was always about that how how much bad you can do to the Hindus. And that's the reason why Babur saw that now the Delhi is captured, but there's a way forward because he has to deal with Sangram Singh, that is Rana Sanga. He has to deal with the Rajputs. The work is still not done because he knew very well that something is going to come up, and soon the Battle of Bayana would happen. And so was the wrath of Battle of Bayana that the soldiers of Babur were so feared that they would say that they are seeing those Rajput soldiers in the dream. They're coming and killing them, and so they were not ready to go to the Battle of Khanwa, which happened after that. So Babur was kind of in a situation where he still had not established the Darul Islam. On a stone, he inscribed that Darul Harb has been destroyed after the Battle of Chanderi, where the Johar is committed and many slaughters do happen, and then he finally writes it. So that was his intent, that whatsoever it may happen, Darul Harb has to be destroyed, and so it means that if you destroy Darul Harb, obviously what comes into the picture, Darul Islam, nothing else. So an apologist may say that he's just saying that he removed Darul Harab. But what do you replace Darul Harab with? You have to replace it something. Obviously, it is Darul Islam. So that is what he did, and that's what his intention was. And people can get carried away reading the work of Alex Rutherford, the books which are kept in the back door, Alex Rutherford, the Mughal series, and which even I believe that they are the epitome of the primary sources or whatsoever when you want to know about the Mughals. Because that's what I was told, and in that you will see that it's the Babur is so excited to look at Kohinoor. This is exactly the contrast of what exactly happened, and that is even used as a case that how much appreciative he was for the art, and he because the diamond was so beautiful, he had this taste for the aesthetics, and then he quickly jumped and the naming ceremony happened, Koh-i-Noor, as in the mountain of the light and
Mountain of
so
Light.
on and on. So that's how the beautifully the book has been written, and based on which the Empire series also came. But the intention was way more than that. The intention was to establish Darul Islam, which was, according to Babur, done after the Battle of Chanderi.
And so, sir, for he had come with ambitions. So, like, what role did his wife, sons, and siblings, they what complex role did they play in his rise and the stability of his rule? And what fresh insights emerge in your biography? When it comes to their role in the key decision making and their influence in it.
So, see, I say one thing for sure to everyone that of all his successes, Babur was a great family man. Of course, people can pick the case of Anjada, he losing his sister to Shaibani Khan and say that he couldn't. But Babur always longed to get her back. He was just in the circumstance where Anjada herself says that, please let me go so that you can save the empire. And this is what happened. And but Babur always had this longing that I have to get back my sister. I have to get back my sister. And the moment of the meeting, the way it has been described in Babur Nama, perhaps I have not been able to describe so beautifully as Babur himself has done in Babur Nama. It's beautiful. It's like I'm not trying to make any comparison with any literature, but like any meet between a brother and a sister, I have not come across a literature which has described so beautifully as Babur has done it. It's beautiful. It, imagine that this is the era of 1500 and something, or rather 1490s and 1500, and where it is all about the conquering, and where in Islam, somehow the relationship between the brother and sister is not exactly how we see in our dharmic tradition. There also he is so much into that bond of a sister, which is very strong. And a lot of things which Babur would do in the future would be controlled by Khanjada, his sister.
Mm.
And later on, a very powerful lady who will pop up is Gulbadan Begum, who is the daughter of Babur's sister of Humayun, who would write Humayun Nama, and she will be the kingmaker on that era. And all the support what Humayun got to survive, it was because of Gulbadan Begum. And also, uh, if you read Abul Fazl works, you will get to know that he tells very clearly that if Akbar became a king, it was because of Gulbadan Begum. So Gulbadan was a very so somehow the house of the Timurids, Babur onwards, had some very strong female in the house. Female were very powerful one. They were not somebody as how one would portray as. At many times in our right wing circle, it's always this empire, Timurid empire female are never seen as a powerful one. They will always try to express that they will look at it from a point of view of Islamic theology, that how exactly the things work. But trust me, they were very powerful. And in fact, mm, when Babur got married to Aisha, who is his first wife, and he is not interested to go and see Aisha because he's interested to see Babri, who is the boy he's looking at. By then, it's exactly during the first marriage, or the first nikah rather. But it's his grandmother who is pushing that no, you can't do it. You have to come back. So imagine in that era, a gay has been transformed to be a person who would marry seven in the days to come. And he had many children. So now you can just imagine that what the power or the central power a woman hold in that household. You can't imagine it happening the time of now, because this may look to a people that it is not of so much significance, but in fact we can't make a claim whether his sexual orientation was changed or not, but he was certainly made to be something which he was not at all interested to. He's writing very clearly that I'm very shy to see Aisha. I don't want to barge into a room or live with her. But I'm always the moment I look at the Babri, I'm maddened in the love with Babri, and so on and on. He writes. So that kind of a man is transformed the way he is. So women folks played a very important role. We don't see a much happening in the era of Babur in terms of administration because the reign was only for 4 years. But despite that, also till they were encountering Shaibani Khan, and he was living the life as a chessboard king. The female folks were always there at the receiving end, and they always took the charge that how even now the empire needs to be remain and somehow his grandmothers played a very important role. They were very pivotal.
So, sir, the book has, received a lot of praise. Like, apart from Vikram, sir, like, Vivek, sir, was like, the praises that he wrote. And like to quote him, he had said that, Aabhas questions standard narrations on the life and times of Babur. And as we look at Bharatvarsh's past in new ways, the book is a welcome addition to the corpus, and that it is indeed. So, so what primary texts did you use beyond the Baburnama were consulted for understanding Babur and this early, era of the dynasty, as well as what challenges did you face in distinguishing fact from hagiography or later embellishments? Because your work, if I may say that, is one of the few works wherein your opinion or how you feel towards a particular ideology or a ruler is not overflowing in the text itself. Like it is put out in very like I cannot pick up moments like or if we go back into this conversation itself, like you're very clear that no, like you may say whatever you want to about him, but he was a great family man. So in that way, like your personal opinions are out of it. So how did you ensure that the facts and the embellishments stay out?
Well, so when and in fact we all miss Vivek Devray a lot, and I was really overwhelmed when he wrote the note back to me. I was not expecting. I was expecting more of a straight criticism, but when it came to me, I was overwhelmed. And trust me, he's a man who read all the pages, and that's when he took time, and that's when he gave the engrossment note. So I was on cloud nine when I received it, and of course, coming to the primary sources, it is a very tricky path. Why I say tricky path? Because most of the people believe still that have they got if they have got the translations, they have got the primary sources. No, they are not primary sources because the translations, if done unfiltered, it will be a primary source. But whatever translations I have found of Babar Nama, they were all filtered. They were filtered. They were had additions. They were additional annotations which change the story altogether. Like I'll just give you an example. There is no character called Mir Baki Tashkandi. Translation has brought it in front of me. There is nowhere. There's a Mir Baki and a Baki Tashkandi, two different characters. They have merged it to make Mir Baki Tashkandi. So now, when this happens and when this scenario exists, and in fact, in a panel discussion, I was asked that what's the point of referring to the original source, and it came from somebody who has worked in National Museum. That we have translations, people are referring to translation. That's good enough as primary source, and he was a reputed government officer, and he still is, I believe, and he's a scholar who looks in the curation of museums and art. So when you receive such kind of comments from the people who are into the service of doing the service which I am doing, or others who are using primary source are doing, they are themselves avowed to the primary source. It was a very slippery slope to find the thing and to convince the people that things are different. They are not same. They are not same. Now, apart from Babur Nama, I did refer to Humayun Nama, and because Humayun Nama has got, especially when I was dealing with Babur's death, which happens in Babur 2. There I had to go back to Humayun Nama because Babur Nama, of course, is being written by Babur. He will not write about his death, so only Humayun Nama could answer it. Apart from that, uh, I did refer to the works of Farishta. I can't call it contemporary source, but to some extent a primary source because he did take it from the hearsays of
Mm.
the successors. So there wouldn't be much of a filtration. Then I did refer to the work of Abul Fazl because Abul Fazl also talks a little about Babur. I choose to take works of Badoni too, because Badoni had done the whole historiography about the empire right from beginning to the towards the end. So these are the primary sources which have been pivotal to me. And I was already overwhelmed with the Farsi manuscript of Babar Nama. So even if I would have, there came a phase that, oh yeah, it's done. Let's close it with this many. And uh, because there were not even more sources, I tried to find, like, found a few poems written by Babar here and there, which is a separate book, but they were not adding
Mm.
much value, but they are just series of poems, which again is with National Archives. So we don't even have much sources. This challenge will, I won't say it was not challenging because you have to translate it, check for the get it checked by the other scholars of the Farsi that what you're translating is correct or not. But it is going to be even more challenging when I'm dealing with Akbar because there are many sources. There are a lot of people whom Akbar had commissioned to write about him. So it's going to be a ride for me. I don't know when it will get over, but this will be a real test of me. If I'm able to finish it, then it will be a kind of accomplishment which I can at least take for myself. That for me, it will be one benchmark which I will like to achieve in every other book in the future.
Even for Babur, I mean, when you uh, in your second book, especially, I mean, when you talk about dates, you've told us that, so and so person has, say, written this date, and this can't probably be possible because all of this happened. So, with fewer primary sources, I think you have that sort of a luxury where you can still triangulate, as you said, with a lot of other authors also acting as primary sources, then it becomes difficult to track. I think is that also something that's true?
Yes, that's very true. And in fact, it's very tough to filter that what is primary, what is not. Like
Hmm.
Babur's will, there's a thing called Babur's will or Babur's Wasiyat, which is a absolute forgery, and which scholars like Ram Punya and all have gone on to make Babur a secular king who told Humayun to save cow, not kill the cows and whatnot. Don't do this with Hindus and whatnot. And anybody who knows a little of Farsi would pick immediately because the seal which has been put on the will has even spelled the name of Babur wrong. Ghazi has been written as Gadhi, and that's the scholarship we are dealing with. And people are taken so seriously. Big people will quote Ram Punya and whatnot. So yes, I was lucky on that part that I could spot those errors. And in fact, in Ram Janmabhoomi case, I have spoken about the dates, that how the forgery of date happened, how inscriptions were brought into the place. And the moment people see something in Arabic or Persian or Farsi, लोगों को लगता है they feel that, oh, I have got the primary source. It does not work like that. You have to also find that when that inscription is coming from. Farsi of 15th, 16th century is different from the Farsi of 19th century, and it is different from that of 12th century. So a text will be written a certain way. An Arabic of the 6th, 7th century is very different from what is written later on. So I'm not getting into Arabic of 6th, 7th century because it's good to stay away from that debate. I have learned my lessons hard way. But yes, so we need to do this, that understand that how the script evolved, which script belongs to which era, what it is like. And there have been injustice even from the side of the right side of historians. And I will not call out that it's their fault because they were battling other battle that they have to grapple with the nonsense of the left which is being put to them. They had different battles. Maybe that they did not get much time to learn the language or whatsoever. But Without knowing the language of the authority, you
Hmm.
can't do the history of that subject, or else we will meet the fools.
So I will jump from Babur to the introduction of your first book, where you put a very thought-provoking, statistic in front of all of us readers. You say that, and I quote, just to set a perspective, we read about the devastating Bengal famine of 1943, in which 3 million people were killed, and for which Winston Churchill was held accountable. Yet the Deccan famine of 1630 to 32, which killed more than twice that of the Bengal famine, gets whitewashed at ease. So your book, traces links between war, goes about, talks about court policy, catastrophe, also about Taj Mahal. Um, and of course, you point out about how Shah Jahan's campaigns precipitate or rather intensify uh, the Deccan famine of 1630 to 32. What is your assessment of this imperial responsibility? Uh, because this is a very new thing for most readers, including us who've read quite a bit of books on Babur. I mean, no one has, or on Shah Jahan rather, no one has talked about this to the best of my knowledge, where they've squarely blamed him for this Deccan famine.
Yes, and that's makes it interesting, isn't it? That
A
we have been
very
dealing.
interesting one.
Yes, we have been dealing with Mughal Azam since the era of people are making films, and first Hrithik Roshan comes into the picture, and then Kunal Kapoor has come, and then again maybe another 5 years we will have somebody doing the thing. But and wasn't it the ritual in the past? I think it still is there that when you are in Delhi, Taj Mahal jana hai और एक photo लेके आना है, right? And I am an architect and I love the building for sure. It's a great
Hmm.
architecture. I find it beautiful. It's gorgeous and it's a great masterpiece. But even a
But
master,
same, I'm sorry I'm cutting you, but same for Humayun's tomb also. Like everyone
yes,
has to come to, like, it's called Lodi Garden, and
yes,
the people gather there, and I'm sure deep down we'll find something else. But I
yes,
mean, everyone is very obsessed with, and it's a good architecture, but everyone's like very obsessed with the whole idea of it.
yes, and that makes you go gaga that you have to ensure that. I remember my own childhood when there was a Kodak camera that's where which comes into the picture and you take the picture. But it's a mistake from the ASI. It's a mistake from our historians. They did not point it out that a board needs to be affixed there, stating that what exactly has gone behind it. Go and praise the architecture. No one is telling you not to do it. Take a picture for sure, and we take the picture even the Holocaust Museum. There's no harm in it. Do it. You must do it. But the point is that you must know that when this Taj, the structure was commissioned, I am responsibly using the word commissioned because I've still not reached to the Taj in my series. I don't know what it was. So I'm neither to the side of the right or extreme right or whatever people may like to call it. Neither I am to the left that I don't know whether it was a temple or not. I don't know whether, but we have some record that the land was surely given, a property was passed on. So we don't know much about it so far. I don't know specifically. So when I will go on to read about it or rather research around it, I will surely write in detail of it, that how architecture of it happened. But irrespective of that, it was surely commissioned, and the cost of commissioning was around 4.18 CR or 41.8 million silver coins. It's a big number. And when this was commissioned, when his wife died while giving birth to the 14th child in the 19 years of marriage, and she died of a labor pain. And so you can imagine that people give the example of a love, and so it was 19 years of marriage, the 14th child. So we don't see any hint of love that way. That she's not even caring for his wife that way. That how she needs to be, what is about her well-being, etc. Forget that. Let's not get into that. But when she died, He had to bury her somewhere, and that by then that period, famine had hit the Deccan and the Surat, the Gujarat, and in that famine, it is estimated that around 7.4 million people succumbed. So it means that it's around twice the number of the people died in the Bengal famine of 1940s when Churchill, whom we make accountable for. Now, this famine was very much created by Shah Jahan because his his governors rebelled against him, and when they rebelled, and from this the area of Deccan and the Surat, Malwa, etc., which were like the gold mine for him. He used to extract the revenue till 53% from that land. So that land is not giving you that much revenue. Why the others should have the revenue? So he thought to teach them a lesson. And in this quest to teach the lesson, the imperial army of the Shah Jahan went ahead and they ravaged the crop, they destroyed it, they burnt it down. And so, and in fact, when the horses ran over the mud was not even healthy enough to grow the crops for the next season. So it was all complete debacle of the food, cereals, grains, and whatsoever the surplus people would have. And unfortunately, rain did not happen. And because rain did not happen, coupled with the atrocity done by Shah Jahan, famine hit. And the situation was so bad that the eyewitness account, like of Peter Mundi and many other, say that the people are eating from the excreta of the dead. The father is selling his children as a slave so that at least he can live, right? Even if he becomes a slave, even dog meat is being sold, and dog meat is a haram. So even there was a Muslim population back then, but still dog was being eaten because you can eat it cheap. So that was the situation. And having created that famine, Shah Jahan released 1 lakh of rupees as a famine relief and invested 4.18 crore silver coins to commission this very structure. In fact, Mumtaz used to get 1 CR as a maintenance every year. So you can just see the comparison of a number. So here was a man who created a famine, and that's when this the structure was commissioned, and so much money was invested, which is 4 times the maintenance what his wife is getting. And in fact, when you look at the parties which Shah Jahan used to throw, the amount of money which was invested, so it was just irresponsible. It was completely out of way to deal with your subject. They are dying, and you are partying. You are commissioning a structure for 4.18 CR while you're giving just 1 lakh as a payment relief. So this is not done. And I always make a point when people say that Taj bhi le jayenge to kya reh jayega. My point is that Taj was built by our money. Taj was built by our artisans who were Hindu enough, and Taj was built on our land. Then who hell are you to take the Taj away? It's ours. It will always. So it reminds me of a genocide, but does not mean that it's not ours. It's very much ours. Our blood is there. So people should not dare to even say it.
So, sir, like you've mentioned this that not only was Babur this conqueror, he was also a prolific poet. How did you select the poetry to incorporate in the book, the first one, the Chessboard King? And also, we see the poetry, at the start of the volume two, and it's very both it's both emotional and it's both thought-provoking. So, is it an inherent quality or something that you've dabbed in while writing about Babur, that he used to write poetry himself?
Yes, he was a great poet for sure, and I really admire him as a poet. And many people did not like it when Babar came. They had a problem that I'm calling him a great poet and whatnot. So, and he was such a good poet at heart. As I told you that he would just slaughter whole day, and in the evening he will sit quietly. I don't know whether he sit quietly or what, but of course, I just a metaphor I'm using. He sat and wrote the poems. And in fact, he has in Bhavanama, he has even gone to the extent to express the slaughter through his poetry. He expresses the thing like why he's killing someone through the poetry. After having doing cold-blooded murder, he's so coolly writing the poem. So I don't think that in this whole empire we had anybody as educated and at the same time prominent as an artist. I don't think any one of them was there. Babur indeed left a mark. And when it is coupled with him being a family man, he's a great person that way. Let's forget it being Hindu, because for us Hindus, he's definitely the villain for sure. But when you remove that picture of it, again, this makes no sense what I'm saying, because you can't really try to make a good picture out of a villain. We never do it. Like, we can't talk about the watercolor work of Hitler for sure. But if a biographer of Hitler comes in the picture, he would say that yes, he is a watercolor. He was a great watercolor artist, and it was misfortune that he did not get admission in the art school, or perhaps had he got, maybe the things would have been different. But on the same point of view, if I say about Babur, he was surely a great poet. He was a great family man, and his poems would always live with me. And in fact, I love reading his poems, and they are more like couplets. दोहा जिसको बोलते हैं, the दोहा, the two liners, at times four liners, चौपाई की तरह जाएंगे. And so he did some good work.
And does his poetry also give a glean about his inner world? And how do his poetic choices, how do they complicate or humanize the common image of him? Because let's say, as a Sanatani, so to say, we are taught to look at it a certain way. Like, again, this is where I feel you writing his history has been very refreshing, that you've been very practical about it. Like, you've criticized him, you've you've as you said, he's a family man, he writes good poetry. But what all can we glean about his life?
So you see three things you can always find out in his poem. One is that there's a lot of sadness in
Hmm.
the initial days. Second is that he is very he gets very aggressive once he's in Kabul, and you can find that glimpses in his poems post his Kabul era, where he's talking about destruction, where he's talking about rage. You will find this happening. And once he enters into Hindustan, he's writing a lot about infidels. This has to be done with the infidels, and this again comes to poetry. So largely, Babur expressed himself best through his poem, and that is why we still have in National Archive a work of his poetry kept separately. So he was very expressive. He liked to express himself. That's why he wrote perhaps Baburnama, and then you don't see such a great work by any emperor of an autobiography done by somebody else. Maybe that he himself wouldn't have known that it will be published and whatnot. People, all the world would read. Maybe it was just his personal diary. It was never destined to be autobiography, even because autobiography is something which you want people to read. It was a very personal diary of him, and yet he has expressed every minute detail, every seconds, every moments, what he does in the morning, what he does in the evening. Has gone so beautifully. So his poems are great reflectance of his journey. It exactly reflects what he has been doing. When he's in pain after the death of his father, you see it. The moment he enters into Hindustan, his rage against the infidels, that expresses very well. When he's in Kabul, he has become the Pasha, as in he's in control and command. You see a bit of lot of words flowing through his poems, which speak of the command, control, let this be done, and those kind of things appear in the poem. So this whole transition of Babur comes out exactly through his poems. If one maybe that if one just puts out, maybe I'll try to put his poems in as an addendum somewhere in Babur 2 in the next edition or so, because I feel that they are really good. I will try to put in the Farsi form as well, the transliteration, so that people can read it, that what he means with the translation, so that it may add something for the student of art, culture, literature too.
Hmm. Yeah.
So jumping to sort of not current affairs, but things happening around us more so, perhaps in the recent past. I mean, in the state of Maharashtra, for example, where I am, there were huge demands to, remove Aurangzeb's grave. Of course, there was the Ram Janmabhoomi movement about the reclamation uh, of our Bhagwan Ram's Janmsthan. So there are deep contestations around India about the Timurid legacy. In your view, as a historian, or rather as a scholar, I would say, because then sticking the tag of historian would again get us all in trouble. Uh, what is the delicate balance between this remembrance, this erasure from history? What is the balance that we should strike?
So it's very tough to strike a balance because so many wrongs have been done, and over that, so many wrongs have been done by hiding it.
Hmm.
And at times, I don't feel bad or I don't feel surprised when we see a lot of extreme expression which comes out of people. It's it's bound to happen. It's like if you store water in a bottle for very long under a deep pressure and suddenly, like how the Bernoulli's principle works, it's just so it does happen. But taking a point of the Aurangzeb grave, for example, see, his grave is there, it's going to remain there. But the point is that we need not uh, shower so much respect to him as it has been. Politicians have gone out of way and to shower the respect. So somewhere, like we don't even know perhaps that where Hitler is buried, or you know, the point is that the moment you give such a place to a villain of sort like Aurangzeb, it 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 can become very easy for a person to get away, carried away, because you generally have a perception that the graves or the places of remembrance or the memorials are for the people whom you want to remember. Why will you like to remember somebody who has done the glorious thing? And if we are to have a grave of the Aurangzeb, perhaps we need to put across his farmans there that what he did with the Hindus, what he did with the temples, what he did with Kashi, Mathura, and other places. We need to put out his conversion document that how many rupees a male will get and how much a female will get for the conversion. We need to put out what he did with the Chhatrapati Shambhaji Maharaj. So these needs to accompany if the grave exists. So perhaps that can only bring a kind of a fine balance, or else we will never be able to strike the balance because villain needs to be seen as he was for sure. We must not forget him. We must not forget that there was an Aurangzeb. It shouldn't even happen that Aurangzeb is just wiped out of our memory because if you forget that who were the villains of your past, you may find a villain again and you may not even know that he is a villain because generally the problems which you see arising it comes only from in and around us. It's very humane to be a villain, and that is why I often say that I want to humanize all these emperors because so that people don't have this kind of a feel that there's somebody who is a very bad extremist Muslim or there's a very bad extremist Islamist. It can just be anybody. You never know that when the passion can rise up and get the things going. So it's important to humanize them. It's important to put out their acts, like I was talking about the Taj Mahal. So should be done with Aurangzeb. But yes, people have very much. People are very right when they claim that destroy it, etc. I don't have any qualms around it, though I'm a very free speech absolutist. I vouch for it, but then I vouch for the free speech of the people who are demanding it because it's in the same land where he has done the atrocity, and if they are demanding it, is rightful so.
So, sir, how do you respond? Again, this is like, related to the current, scenario only and the current narrative, and expanding on it. How do you respond to, narratives that portray Babur as purely a ruthless foreign invader versus those that portray him as a complex indigenous founder? And is there like a room for some non-appeasement based reading and inclusion in textbooks? Because what we are seeing is either he's portrayed as a really great, force or really great emperor who came to India, or he's portrayed as this ruthless, man who was an invader. So how do we find this middle
Or
ground
erased
specifically?
from history altogether, if I may.
Yes, I mean, I don't think erasing him from history altogether is going to be very helpful, which is again like my personal opinion. And how does his story fit into the broader narrative of the Indian civilizational ethos?
So somebody like Babur uh, needs to be remembered for sure. We need to
Hmm.
know them because, like it's always said that Shatru Bodh and Swayam both are important. So if you want to have Shatru Bodh, you can't have a Shatru Bodh without the Shatru. And these are the case studies for you.
Yes.
And any good project of a scientific temperament cannot be fulfilled without a case study. And so that we don't fall through the trap of the Stockholm syndrome, which we often get through. At times, it feels that Stockholm syndrome slowly and slowly can start making. When you don't have the memory of these people, suddenly after 300 years, someone will say that, oh, Babur was a great person. Maybe that the words of Jawaharlal Nehru will again resurface. And because you have not spoken much about him, and because you know that it's coming from the first prime minister of a country, so maybe that he's a great man and whatnot, right? So it's very important to keep documenting them, keep talking about them. Uh, the readers or the audience are wise enough to really gaze that if Babur has taken a vote to destroy the idols of Hindu gods and goddesses, just like the pots of wine. So whether he needs to be look as a villain, maybe an author need not even tell that. I need not say that he's a villain or a hero, but people are wise enough to make a judgment that where in which category he falls. Like if somebody has committed a murder, one murder is enough to really uh, get away with all the punya which he would have done. He may have given thousands of charity, but that doesn't matter because one murder is enough to get you convicted and you pay the price for it, whether it comes through lifetime imprisonment or whatsoever it follows. So likewise, even if five crimes are done by these invaders, they need to be put out boldly and they certainly are not our idealistic rulers because in the contrast when we sue as the Hindu rulers, they were very principled. Like I gave example of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, he said that slavery will not exist. But seldom people want to remember it. They would say that he came to Karnataka, looted and whatnot, but he literally uh, made the people of Karnataka free from slavery. So such principled were the Hindu rulers. They, whenever they got the spoils of the war, they distributed it among the people. They never took it for themselves. There was always in fact, the taxes which were brought by the Timurids, they were the highest. And this is not what I am saying. This is AMU scholar Shirin Mushwi's work, which gives the whole account of it that their taxes were the highest, and the Marathas or the Vijayanagar Empire they never taxed as much as they did. They literally killed people through the taxes, and their exploitation was very bad. There is forced production. You're forced to grow something, like how the British did the indigo and etc. So they were no different when it comes to came to be the exploiters. So how are we going to remember these exploiters? Definitely as exploiters, but we even author did not say that they exploited. The moment you put out this data, the statistics, people will be wise enough to pick and choose. Maybe for a Samarkandi, Babur can be hero, but definitely not for an Indian. Though the same biography can give different portrayal to the people living in different places.
Hmm.
So, jumping to, I think, our last question. Um, Looking across your historical work, I mean, when you compare it with everything that you've read, and of course, other than these sources that we've talked about here, uh, you've also, of course, read a lot about Babur in different books written by historians that have come up uh, after our independence. it's very delicate balance not naming anyone. So, I mean, what sort of facts that you found in Babarnama or about Babur as a person, about his dreams or maybe regrets, strategies that you found interesting as an author that you had never known before, uh, even after reading so much? And if you could change one part of modern discourse on the Timurid legacy, what conversation would you spark among Indian students and the wider public?
This is a very pertinent question which you asked, Aditya, and mm, I see there were many things which I came across which were baffling. Because if I name the scholar which I would like a scholar called Stephen Dell, who was then works on
Mm,
Babur. According to him, Babri was a figment of imagination. It's a fictional character. He says it, and he's considered as the authority on Babur,
mm,
international authority on Babur. But Babur himself is very clear in Babur now what he's talking about Baburi. So only a non-scholarly person would say that Babur, Babri is a figment of imagination, which Babur is just doing a poetry, he's imagining, and all those kind of nonsense things which comes in. So it is really not something which you will like to come on table. Second is I was taken aback to know that the wealth was taken from Hindustan to Samarkand and other
mm,
places, etc., which was very rampant. It kept on happening continually. Akbar also did it. Shah Jahan did it. Aurangzeb did it. Jahangir did it. So money was being taken. Money was taken later on even to the Makkah, 6 lakhs of rupees, 5 lakhs of rupees. So the distribution of wealth was very much happening. It's a wrong saying that they kept the wealth over here. And in fact, people were becoming poorer. GDP per capita growth was negative in that era, which is again established by the statistic, etc. So people were becoming poorer. So these things needs to be brought into the book, and if that is brought into the discourse, maybe that all these cock and bull stories about वो स्वर्णिम पल था हमारा जब मुगल्स रूल करते थे and these all will just vanish away and we need to see them as exactly they were. भारत सोने की चिड़िया थे इसलिए वो आए and but it couldn't remain as it was because people began to become poor.
So, sir, we've almost hit the 2 hour mark. I think we've crossed it also. And in these last 120 minutes, we've embarked on everything from the tumultuous life of Babur, his exile, his ambition, the betrayal and conquest. And it has been it's been a very stimulating conversation talking about the first book, and I look forward to reading the second book, like we both do, and discussing that with you. And apart from that, also Hitler. And Aditya, would you like to take it forward?
sure. So first of all, of course, a very big thank you to you. So much gratitude for sparing 2 hours on a Saturday evening for us to record with us, and for all the answers you gave. I mean, they were incredibly detailed. Uh, this is a very, I mean, this is something that we have seen with very good scholars and historians that you never need to tell them in advance what they're going to face. They're like, we know the book that we've written at the back of our hand. You ask anything about it and we'll answer. And that is something that we could actually see so well. So thank you so much for being here with us today, sir. And thank you so much to all of our readers. And I will make a popular demand of sir in our next episode on his second book. I will ask you to read the dedication that you've put at the very front of your book, that's called To the Bangles That Burnt Like Blades, because that is something that actually moved me the second I started reading that book and I went through that. That was the first page that I clicked a picture of and I put it on my Instagram, because that actually sort of moved me to tears. So thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank you. It was all my pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed conversing with both of you, and
Thank you,
I
sir.
look forward for more.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
absolutely. Thank you, sir.